Hey, everyone, welcome to the Blue Gamer Bluecast Morning Show. I'm your host, Adam Blue, 30 plus year video game enthusiast, and howdy, I've got the chat working. So, very interesting. As soon as I hit stream, OBS actually crashed, and then my wife was talking to me, and I was like, oh my god, what's going on? And then I just restarted OBS and was able to log back into the original stream and get the chat working. So, dang, it's crazy how at the last minute sometimes things will just happen, and it can work out still. I think I deserve that after all this. Anyway, hope you all been having a good morning so far. To get started, there's a few things we're going to talk about today. I don't think I'm going to play anything. I just have some neat conversations that have come up as I was looking at news, because there's still not too much news in general of things going on. What is interesting, and I don't, and I'm not going to make it where it gets political, I just find it interesting. So I would say for the most part, I'm very disappointed with the general video game journalism. Those are paid professionally. Those that are paid professionally to cover video games, video game news. I follow Stephen Tottilo's Game File, which is an email newsletter he has. I feel like a lot of, there's singular people that have email newsletters. There's also Jeff Snyder. He's a movie guy. They have these email newsletters, and it's amazing news. The thing is, they do cost, and so it's very interesting when I think about that. Like, you have to, like, these email newsletters, sometimes you'd have to fight to have the the money from people. Yeah, because if everyone's charging $100 a year for these email newsletters, how many people could you really get? That's why either you make it cheap or you become part of a bigger service. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out here. But anyway, these more expensive email newsletter people have the best news. And it makes me think, I think the general video game journalist really doesn't get, probably paid too much to really cover things with kind of a depth and authenticity that we used to see, like in EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly. There's old video game magazines, even early days of the internet. And I think there's been the shift. Jeff Gerstmann is a good example. He was at GameSpot. He got fired for not review. He was supposed to give a game a good review, and he didn't, so he got fired. That's a good example of someone with integrity. Then he started Giant Bomb. And Giant Bomb was fun until actually, maybe around the time he left. And then it kind of spiraled into this thing where Giant Bomb was associating itself with other outlets with, I guess, universally disappointing games journalists, to where what's very interesting I've seen happen right now is that since the election outcome, there has been this kind of almost, I would say, exodus, or even minimizing of this sort of video game news infused with social justice, which I'm not opposed to that. It's just that's what the video game news came to be. And with the Dragon Age Veilguard, I feel like that's been very interesting because, if you look at the reviews and then you look at its sales, and again, that game did things different than older Dragon Ages, where again the story was really about relationships between people in terms of how you communicate with people. And yeah, it's crazy the sales, how low they are, because it's funny, like my brothers are playing Dragon Age, but they didn't play Dragon's Dogma 2, and I'm like, dude, Dragon's Dogma 2 is like the better game. And Dragon's Dogma 2 sales were insane. Dragon Age sales are not that great. And I don't know. I feel like there's a correlation there. And Chris is saying, to be honest, the grifters are getting worse by making things political because of the rage bait. Yeah. And that is the unfortunate problem on the other side that's come out of this, is some grifters then feel like they've been validated. But what it is they can smell the BS, but then they double down and go all in and consider everything BS, and it clouds real issues. So that's the disappointing thing that's actually come out of this election. So I think it's interesting. There's two sides to this. since the election, people have kind of toned down, I think, or toning down on messaging within video game news, but at the same time, you get the grifters that feel validated, and then they're doubling down on everything, and then it's like, oh gosh, and it's disappointing because it makes it harder for me to find who to follow on Twitter or wherever. That's why I was talking about the email newsletters, GameFile, because I want to find those individuals that are good about posting information, posting news, but are not like speculating into a fact, because that's very dangerous to do. Ultronymous is someone who never played a Dragon Age. The newest one didn't really do anything to be appealing to me. Yeah, same here. Exactly. Like, it's, for me, it's hard to really get into an RPG. So something like Dragon's Dogma is exactly what I want, because it's all a systems-based game. Although I've heard this new Dragon Age game is less of an RPG and a good action game. So if there's a sale down the line, I might try to play it for the action. And the graphics are really good. And when it's not a whole bunch of effects and everything, my brother has posted some screens of it, and it looks good. And it uses the Snowdrop engine. So it's very interesting. Anyway, what I'm saying from this is I'm hoping this is a turn to where we start getting more authentic and critical thinking games journalists that... get back to the old days of just like, here's some cool information. And then, yeah, sure, they can have their take with it, but it's not like a speculative fact. It's more of it would be neat, I don't know. Okay. And that's not me. I'm different. I don't think I could get to that, because I think sometimes I do speak about speculation, but I also try not to delve into the negative of default, like thinking, oh, because of this, everything's gonna suck. It's and also I play a lot of random games that people that aren't mainstream, and I don't care about things like Grand Theft Auto, so Veilguard is probably still the best-selling Dragon Age game. Also, it's an action RPG as much as ME3 was not ME2. Yeah, and I haven't played Mass Effect kind of for the same things, where it's like it's amalgamation of genres and it's not even doing one genre good. It's pretty sad, though, if Veilguard is the best-selling Dragon Age game. I didn't realize that it was those games were never big sellers. I always thought, and from what I heard too, like halfway through development, I think in 2022 they redid Dragon Age twice. First they focused. I think they changed it to be a multiplayer game, and then they went back to make it, no, let's make a single-player game. And so I think that kind of hurts, too. But speaking of EA, let's jump into a news article real quick. And I think this is just weird. It's EA boss Andrew Wilson reportedly tapped for Disney top job. So here's the thing. You get these let me adjust this. You get these, like, non-creatives that are running the business, and you know what? Sure, if these companies want to do it that way, that's fine. I think that when you run something business-minded, you need to, but without the creative aspect, you lose the chance of things going viral in terms of like a random hit coming out of nowhere, things like that. So the boss of EA, publisher of EA Sports, FC, Battlefield, The Sims, and Dragon Age, is reportedly in the frame to replace Disney CEO Bob Iger. Andrew Wilson is among the top candidates currently being considered a long-term replacement for Iger, who oversees all of Disney. And so what's interesting is EA had an exclusivity with Disney on Star Wars games. So they've worked close together. And I'm sure they both worked together like, how can we make sure our bottom line is this? Instead of what can we do to ignite and change and revolutionize what we can do with the amount of money we have. Name an EA game that's changed your life recently. When was the last Command & Conquer game from EA? They even canceled one. They've been doing that for a while, where they're working on one and canceling one, and then they're doing that mobile game that's coming out soon. I wonder if it's already out. There was the beta. So what this tells me is, hey, bottom line, men. Can you make the money even if the stuff is crap? Let's maximize marketing, maximize messaging just to make our money. the end product might not be that great. So what? Then I was like, okay, well, what are some other CEOs? And I just looked up the Capcom CEO, Kenzo Tsuchimoto. I butchered that. Is a Japanese businessman who founded the video game companies Capcom and IREM. IREM, I don't know how you pronounce it, but they did R-Type, a bunch of classic games. And I don't know who does it say who owns them now? Unless they're their own, it says they're a subsidiary. I don't know. But anyway, this dude is still he's the chairman and CEO of Capcom. He's the guy that founded the company. Not only that and I see no problem with this because this keeps the creative juices flowing. His older son has served as Capcom's president and COO since 2007. His younger son is a producer of the Monster Hunter series. So just think how keeping that creativeness within the family as they're doing these things. Capcom is such a successful video game company. And you look at, okay, what's the leadership like? Oh, it's people that know video games and started with video games. It's not just some random moneymaker dude. I'm curious about, I know I've looked it up before, but I haven't looked, no, not businessman. Here we go. Let's see. In the dot-com boom of the late 1990s, Wilson, living in Sydney, built Australian websites for international corporations. So, okay. Let's see. And then in 2000, he joined Electronic Arts and made games about sports. Okay, so, and I don't want to disparage anyone, but it's not like he has any really background in the creative process when it comes to video games as a whole. Whereas if you look at the dude from Capcom, he was there from the beginning. He founded the company, and he's been able to keep it as badass as it has. And through the ages, because there was even a time in the 2000s where Capcom was relying on Western developers for some of their IP, and that didn't work out. Hey, at least they tried that. It didn't work. They moved on, and I feel like Capcom hits it out of the park now with their games, even with their classic stuff. Let's see. I think there should be a balance. A creative can make great things, but may not be not promote it while non-creative. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you need the creative there, but a lot of times, like in Capcom's case, you're creative enough to make sure you're marketing it right. And those people can exist, but I think a lot of times board members, whatever, shareholders are looking at this bottom line. They're like, okay, this guy may be creative and can make money, but this guy is able to make money. We're not spending money on other things. I mean, we just heard about that Marvel Rivals developer that they're not specifically working on Marvel Rivals, but they had laundered $1 million because I'm pretty sure that's what these non-creatives do when they're in these big video game companies that make millions of dollars. I mean, sometimes it's like, where do these budgets go? And no one ever has an answer of where these budgets go, but then we hear cases of money laundering, and it's like, well, there you go. And think of that, there's that game Black something that's coming out soon. Black State, let me see. It's made by 10 people, and it looks amazing, yeah. And it's like, it's made by 10 people, and it looks like Metal Gear Solid. Like, and again, we haven't played it, we don't know what it's like, but I think this is a good example of, like, most video game companies have overinflated budgets for the purpose of the executives banking on it. That's the only reason. Look at the Palworld developer, Pocket Pair. And then even, Nintendo's going after them. Expect the grifters to attack. Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, there are going to be grifters. Just like at the end of the day, there are murderers, even though murder is illegal. And it's just, both need mental health help. I mean, at the end of the day, there's, Let's see. Capcom also does actively take feedback from consumers with various polls, acknowledging their past failings, not blaming it on something else. Yeah, that's also something Konami has done, and I think Konami is a good example of a company that is very successful, but went through a period of them like kind of disregarding their franchises. But I think it was in the period where you couldn't put all your eggs in one basket for video games, so they had to do something else. And you looking back, it's like, because of that, they had less crap coming out, even though it was less stuff in general, but it was less to ruin a brand. Like a lot of times you can look back at games or sequels and be like, oh man, that stuff was horrible. But Konami, and now Konami's come back. Like look at all the Castlevania stuff that's come out this year. As soon as I get back into Castlevania, they hook me up. Keiji Inafune was one behind getting Western developers to help. Yeah, I met that dude. And then the thing is, though, he did leave to make his own Mighty Number 9 game, and it didn't turn out, which was very interesting. Thought that was interesting. Yeah, Mega Man on Musha, Lost Planet. I feel like Steven would say it's the middle managers inflating the budget. Well, I think it's middle. I don't know if they have anything to do with the budget. I bet it's the middle managers that are just not managing properly, like we saw with Xbox. Which is very fascinating, because like Microsoft has all that money, and they had all these it was this, and I've talked about this before. It's the same thing with Microsoft. Like when what's his name left? Oh, what's that name? Is it Grasshopper Manufacturer? Whatever that company was with Bethesda. Once their main creative guy left, Microsoft closed them down. They got bought by another company. But even then, they're like, well, we don't really know where to go or what to do because they don't have their creative lead anymore. So anyway, it's just interesting to see. Is it interesting to see? No, it makes sense that Disney would get this guy, because at the same time, Disney is a bottom line company. Like they brought up last year, and I remember they were banking on messaging in their storytelling, and then they saw that wasn't making money anymore. So they're like, okay, we're going to stop banking. See, they bank on what they think they can bank on and not try to be creative to come up with something unique and interesting. It's like, why hasn't Star Wars, one of the biggest franchises in the world, why has it devolved into what it has? Whereas you look at, and I was doing some research on Godzilla, you look at what Toho does with Godzilla, and they take their time. They're like, okay, we got to do this right. We got to have things make sense. That's why they had Shin Godzilla and Godzilla -1, while having in the Americas have like that MonsterVerse stuff going on, where they can, there are examples where these big companies with big IPs can handle it well. And then you see the examples where the things aren't going well, but you can look at the background and it's like, oh, it's all about the marketing. It's all about the noise of it being in the zeitgeist and less about the final product being any good. So, oh, you're saying it's a pivot? I don't think it's a pivot. I think it's, this dude knows video games. I think that's going to help because Disney's going to have to double down on video games, but Disney video games, when are they really anything? Like, look at when the latest Battlefront 2 first came out, how much of a disaster that was. They redeemed themselves, but that was after what they initially thought was the right way to go. It's insane. Okay, so that was that main first news topic, but to kind of look at first hold on 1 second. 1 second. right. Got some contractors here. Godzilla and Mothra have always have a message in some form, but they know how to mix them into. Yeah, and it's not some sort of. It's not some sort of social. Yeah, what? And there's a better term for it because it's not social justice. Social justice is good, but more of and I think agenda even sounds wrong because it's not because I feel like the messaging has good intentions, but it's done in a way where as if it's like, oh, this is what's happening, and it's more of than making you think that there's conflict when there's not. I guess that's a good way to put it. Like, yeah, the messaging in the Godzilla stuff is usually more about humanity, whereas in what's come out of media lately has been specific instances of things that occur that are personal, but made as if that is what reality is. I do remember that Toho does what it does since they own half of the theaters in Japan. Yeah, and to own half the theaters in Japan and come out with stuff just as good as Shin Godzilla and Godzilla Minus One, when these companies have the foothold like Disney does, they need to do as good as Toho. Mothra was straight up pro-environmentalist in one of his films. Yeah, and I remember hearing about that. And I think that, again, that's not a personal sort of reality. That's more of the world we're in. And it's funny, I was just talking about that in the Gundam Discord because the plastics, they were raising prices on, and that's due to inflation, but it also has to do with the plastic use in Japan. Japan is one of the biggest users of plastic in the world, and they have some of the highest waste in the world when it comes to plastics. So I can see them doing that. Yeah, and I think this is a good, in my opinion, good general messaging. Good general messaging is the dangers of war, dangers of conflict and fighting and violence, but also taking care of ourselves and what's around us. We can only be our best selves when we're taking care of the things around us. So yeah, good points, guys. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that really helps kind of solidify this. And so you look at something like Disney or EA, and what are they trying to do in their work? With the eyes and ears and hands on controllers they have, what are they showing people to try to change lives? And not much. They jump on what's the latest trend that can make them, again, the bottom line. What is the latest trend that's a bottom line for them? And an EA boss is a bottom line move. But not disappointing because it's not like I have to rely on EA for any of my gaming needs. I know people like the sports stuff, but they make the sports stuff work, and yeah. So let's see. Let's jump into some video game news real quick. Let's see. Yeah, a new Monster. Speaking of Capcom, a new Monster Hunter for iOS and Android. It's an open world survival game. That's pretty neat. Timmy Studio. If I'm not mistaken, they're the same ones that did the Metal Slug Awakening, which is excellent for being pretty much a mobile style game, all that stuff. Cool. What else? I tell you, there is not much news, but this is pretty neat. Some little preservation program. Let's see, initiative in which it commits its own resources to maintaining games compatibility with modern and future PC setups. Over 100 improved classics, including a bunch of games there. That's neat because I think that even though with PC you kind of don't have to worry about that, there's still those games every once in a while that don't work too well or don't run well or could have some minor updates to them in terms of using these types of screens and all that. And I guess this is the list right here. So, let's see. Anything else? Oh yeah, I heard some news about the Xbox handheld, but it's likely years away. Unless they mean 2026, because we're about to be in 2025. But they say so many things, so who knows? Secret Level Creator says he hopes the Concord episode will show the potential the story had. That's great if it could show the potential the story had, but that's not why we were playing the game in the first place. Story's a cool thing, don't get me wrong, but why are you interacting, you know? In that case, make it where just with PlayStation Plus you get like a show, a Concord show or something. Oh, Lego Horizon Adventures Silence voice actor revealed following Lance Reddick's passing. So R.I.P. Awesome dude, getting so many cool roles since I first learned about him from The Wire. And since then, he's been in so many cool roles. Also, it reminded me, because I was thinking Tony Todd for a second. I'm not racist. I know they're both black. But Tony Todd just recently passed away, and he recently voiced Venom. So another video game actor that recently passed that could have had some more work. I love Tony Todd. He had this character in The Wishmaster called Johnny Valentine. He was like maybe a bodyguard or something like that, a security guard, bodyguard, and he did the snap. He's like, tell him Johnny Valentine, or something like that. Just a really cool character that was never used. And I even wrote a story about Johnny Valentine. I know it's kind of random. Lollipop Chainsaw for PS4, Xbox One launches December 2nd. Oh, okay. So I really want to play this. I played it again, and I played it before, and I want to play this remake, but I don't know about at the full price it's at, and I wonder if when it comes out on December 2nd, then the PC version will get a discount. Fortnite shoes? As in Fortnite, you get cosmetics that are shoes? Wow, that makes sense. That's where the money's gonna go. Anything else? I don't know. I'm kind of being quiet because there's not too much. I mean, Fortnite gets something. I'm not big on Fortnite. I just know that's popular. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool because Black Ops 6 is going to get the Microsoft stuff. Doom guy, Halo guy. We didn't know we were working on GTA 5. Oh, that's neat. The voice actors. Yeah, Undertaker and Final Destination, Candyman dude, yeah, same guy, Tony Todd. He was in the remake of Night of the Living Dead, which was awesome. Yeah, well, guys, I'm gonna go again. Contractor here, a lot of noise. The dog's acting up. So yeah, thanks for joining. Yeah, just some random news to talk about. I think the CEO talk was really interesting. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.